This is how I assembled the correct back focus for my Player One Astronomy Uranus-c camera.
Safe build stuff!
Before we get started, here's a quick tip for how to remove stuck or stubborn spacer rings. Here's what not to do. Do not get a wrench or a pair of pipe pliers like this. Squeezing on the spacer ring will just deform the ring and further clamp it into place. And you just end up mangling the spacer ring. Don't ask me how I know. The first thing to try is just grab another spacer ring, one that's longer so you can get a better grip on it. Tighten that into place, and sometimes you can get the threads between the spacer rings to be tighter than where the threads are stuck. If that doesn't work, then reach for a roll of gaff tape. Maybe other kinds of tape will work. I have gaff tape. That seems to work really well. Then wrap the gaff tape around both the stuck ring and the additional ring that I've added on here. This adds a lot of friction and even friction all the way around the ring, and it tends to come right off. Okay, on to getting the back focus set on my camera. I have a coma corrector, and then I have an SV Bony filter drawer. The coma corrector requires 56 millimeters of back focus spacing. The camera's image sensor is 12.5 millimeters from the front flange of the camera, and the filter drawer measures 21 millimeters wide. So I will need to add an additional 22.5 millimeters of spacer rings. This is 48 millimeter thread, this is 48 millimeter, this is 42, and this is 42. My first thought was just to attach the filter drawer directly to the coma corrector, and then stack up a series of 42 millimeter spacer rings until I got to that 22.5-ish measurement. This combination of spacer rings I used, however, I think is kind of not ideal because this bottom ring here you can see has bottomed out on the thread, so there's this gap. So it's the thread bottoming out on the bottom of the thread rather than the flat edge sitting against the flat edge. I'm thinking this is somewhat not ideal, as this could perhaps lead to some sensor tilt, because the threads bottoming out on the threads could maybe tilt the tube a little bit rather than the extension tubes sitting nice and parallel to each other. This situation is also less than ideal because, as it's come to my attention more recently, having the filter farther away from the image sensor can lead to reflections and maybe worse glare or halo in your images. Instead, I'm going to attach the filter drawer directly to the camera. And then I'll use a combination of 48 millimeter step rings to attach the filter drawer to the coma corrector. To get to the required 22.5 millimeter spacing, I'm using a 10 millimeter ring, a 7 millimeter ring, and to get the last 5.5 millimeters, I'm actually using the ring from an old filter that I have removed the filter from. So this is the same 48 millimeter thread on both sides, but I've removed the filter because I'm using that in a different project, and it just so happens to be that this is about the perfect 5.5 millimeters I need. And there we go, it's back together, and this is looking pretty good. Hopefully this video was helpful, guys. I've got links in the description below where you can purchase the spacer rings if you need them for your rig. The forecast is looking pretty decent for tonight, so I can't wait to get this outside for some testing. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you on the next video.